Hey, good evening, everybody out there in YouTube, Facebook, and on the Common Grounds podcast listening down the road. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I'm your guest, or I'm your host. I'm not your guest. Wait, am I a guest or am I I'm the host tonight. So I'm your host tonight, Chris from Roasters Marketplace and the Common Grounds podcast. We're running a little bit late tonight. We've had a crazy first week back at school. We've got one back in school and it's just been hectic, something that we haven't did in months, but we've been waiting for. And now, even though school's been out for 3 hours, we're still running behind. So sorry about if we have any technical difficulties or my camera's crooked or my lighting's not good, but my sound should be perfect for y'all listening on the podcast later on. But tonight we're talking to Donny and Michael from Project Buna. As you can tell, they're kind of tonight's unofficial show sponsor. So we'll be talking to them about some projects they've got coming up, some really exciting, really cool stuff. We'll also talk about what they've got planned out in the future. And we'll also talk really deep delve into some of the aspects that go into them roasting and how they roast when they don't actually have their own coffee roaster, and how they've dealt with COVID-19 over the last few months and that aspect of it. So if you're a roaster tuning in for the first time, thanks for tuning in. If you're a longtime viewer, we're glad you showed up. We're glad you're listening to us down the road. We're going to kick off the show like we always do with a little Dom Coors. Let me pull that up because I'm running that behind too. Here we go. Good evening, guys. How are y'all tonight?
Good, man. How are you?
We're good. We're good. What about you, Donny?
I'm doing good, man. Just rocking out to your theme song.
Hey, dude, you got to check out some Dom Coors, dude. His stuff's available on Spotify. You can find him on Amazon. I actually did a tour in Iraq with him back, like 12, 14 years ago. A long time, back 2006. But he's a awesome Texas country, Texas blues rock artist. You should definitely check him out when you get time, if you're listening to the podcast, or download him later on. So a little plug there. But let me get some questions going on in chat right quick. Donny and Mike, while I'm doing that, would you go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners that might not have seen you before?
Yeah, easy. I'm Don Brazil, co-owner of Project Buna. We're a small craft coffee roaster based out of the DC area, Northern Virginia. And I'm originally from Oregon. And cool fact, active duty Navy still. You can excuse the beard. I'm on leave right now, so the shave is a little out of standards. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And I'm Mike Madrid, also the other co-founder and owner of Project Buna, obviously based here in the DC area, also active duty Navy as well still. And I'm from the Pacific Northwest as well, Washington State. And if you haven't heard our background story before, the very quick version in a nutshell is Donny and I served on a ship together, stationed over in Europe. And that's where we kind of really got into coffee. We formed a little club on the ship with some of the other crew members where we ordered specialty coffee and had it shipped out to us. And we would try different brewing methods and different roasts. And it was very good, good social thing, but fueled our interest in coffee. And so now that we're both back here in the States on staff jobs, not going out to sea every couple months right now, we took the extra time that we had to launch this endeavor, which has been a great learning experience. A lot of fun, and we're just over a year old now.
So when was the anniversary?
August 1st.
Well, I didn't even know that. Congratulations. Happy anniversary or happy birthday. I'm not really sure how that applies to a coffee company, but congratulations, guys. That's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
making it through your first year of most of it being in 2020 is an accomplishment. You should get an award for that, or at least a participation medal, right?
Yeah, it's been quite the learning experience. Let's just say we got a crash course in the supply chain and how crisis can affect the supply chain.
It's amazing, the logistical aspects. I mean, a few weeks ago, we finally got the official word from UPS and FedEx that they're not guaranteeing anymore like overnight deliveries or 2-day deliveries. So you're just like, you can pay for it. We don't know when it's going to get there, but you can pay for it. It's quite interesting on that side of the house. But I talked to you all a few days ago about this, about coming on here, and there's one thing that we want to get into right quick for our viewers at Facebook that might be tuning in live. Tell us about the special project that you've got coming up in October for Project Pink.
Well, that's an easy segue because it actually has to do with our business anniversary or birthday or whatever you call it, that 1 year mark. So we were coming up on August 1st, and a bit surreal, especially for two guys with a brand new startup and learning a lot of it trial by fire, and to kind of look back and see the milestones we've made and all the ground we have yet to cover. We wanted to do something special to mark that occasion, mark that milestone of 1 year. And we'd been looking at this specific coffee varietal called Pink Bourbon. And the people who listen to this podcast, who listen to this show, are at least to some degree a coffee nerd, and we'll get into this. But there are very typical red and yellow bourbon varietals. And in Colombia, we're seeing a still pretty rare and spontaneous variation of those two. And it's called Pink Bourbon because the cherries are bright pink on the tree. And it's only being produced by a handful of farms, but we were really interested in this hybrid. We wanted to source some and have a coffee project, a product that had pink bourbon in it. And we combined that with another idea that we've been talking about for a while. And that idea was to celebrate 1 year, or each year anniversary of the company, we would do a charitable coffee project where we would have a different charity that we would send the proceeds to. And so we combined those two things. The color pink made us think of breast cancer and the fight against breast cancer, and Susan G. Komen specifically. And so we partnered with the Virginia Blue Ridge affiliate of Susan G. Komen and have launched Project Pink. So this is a new coffee for us. We're still in the midst of crafting it, sourcing the green coffee and crafting it. And so we launched pre-orders in August on the anniversary, and we'll be running those through October. Like you said, Chris, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So that's the big month that we'll be fulfilling these orders and roasting and shipping all over the country. But the Blue Ridge affiliate for Susan G. Komen, they cover about 42 cities and counties in Southwest Virginia. And they're a great organization that we got put in touch with. I mean, 75%, 3/4 of their funds that they raise locally are going to area nonprofit organizations that provide everything from screenings and diagnostics to treatment services and education. And then the remaining 25% of that's going towards cutting edge research. So we're just really honored to be able to contribute to that. And for every bag that we sell, $5 will be going to Susan G. Komen. We have a goal. It's a fairly ambitious goal of 1,000 bags for a $5,000 total donation. But like I said, launching a little bit early and running those pre-orders through August, September, we're hoping to pick up some momentum. And then, like I said, we'll be fulfilling all those in October.
And we're going to get some links out on our website, probably directly to yours, so y'all can get those orders. And I'm probably going to put up a pink banner here in a couple of weeks to help spur that, because it's awesome to be able to do that. And we were talking about it earlier, and that's one of the things that we also talk about. The logistics aspects of it is quite interesting. And we'll get into that later. But good on y'all guys for doing that and focusing on something that everybody needs to be aware of. And that's, largely the fight against cancer, but specifically breast cancer, because it's such a it's such a killer. That's what it boils down to. It's such a dangerous cancer for women. So
yeah,
it
just
is.
for all the viewers out there, we were aware as the average person is. But once you really start educating yourself and reading about the numbers of how many people are diagnosed, what the mortality rate is, even just here in the state of Virginia, and it's the average size state, the numbers are shocking on how many women are affected by breast cancer. And then something I learned, even men are affected at a relatively high rate for breast cancer. And so just getting out there and educating people on all of our social media platforms. We will be including, it's not just about the coffee. We'll be including little factoids so that people can help educate themselves and their friends and family about the dangers of breast cancer, and resources that they can use to help out in the fight. So just a pretty important thing for us, and everything just seemed to line up, and so far, so good.
Awesome. And if there's any
That's
other
part of what we're trying to do.
if there's any roasters out there that have questions on that, or cafes out there that are watching, tuning in, that are interested in Project Buna or supporting that project by, say, getting your coffee in their shops or on their shelves, just reach out to Donny or Mike at projectbuna.com. I'll put the URL in the comments so people can find you. Too easy. So
Cool.
next,
I appreciate that, man.
no problem, guys. I love supporting you. I love, I didn't get a chance to sample what I was supposed to sample today because I've just been a little bit busy, but y'all know why I was busy. So it was a good reason. But we had some honey processed Colombian, right? Is the last bag I got from y'all a few weeks ago. And that would be Project
13.
Project 13, and it was fantastic. I've actually really, really liked it in the cold brew on that. So that segues us nicely into, do you want to talk about the big project, the other big project that Project Buna's got going on, or do you want to get into the nuts and bolts on how y'all operate?
So I teased the mock-up. This is the mock-up of Project Pink. I don't have to tease this. So this is.
Let me throw you up solo here.
There we go.
So everybody can see it.
So this is an actual bag of Project 75. What this is our first product line in an experience. It's a coffee experience, really, when it comes down to it, that we are calling crowd-crafted coffee. Basically, we took advantage of our network of friends that we had met on the ship that we were stationed on together, and we had our coffee club, coffee buyers club together, and we kind of used them as guinea pigs to help us test how this concept would go. So there were 20 plus people in the initial cohort, and what we did was we walked them through a coffee crafting experience. We curated the experience from everything, starting with, we let them decide what continent they were going to source to bring coffee from. Ultimately, they chose the Americas. We kept it simple with COVID because supplies are somewhat limited from some importers. Then we walked them through. They voted on country. We presented them with Colombia, Guatemala, and Mexico. They ended up voting Mexico. And then we worked with our importers, found a handful of different lots that would fit this size of a project. We received advanced samples from the importers so that we could get some general tasting notes for the cohort. And then we provided them the history and information of each of the producers that they were going to have the opportunity to vote on. They ultimately decided that we were going to source from a producer called Jose Cienfuegos, Jose 100 Fires. Really cool name. We think that might have had a little bit to do with swaying the vote, but Yeah, they picked that coffee. We sourced it. We did profile roasting, which are the samples that you have there, Chris. Unfortunately, with COVID going on, we weren't able to do a live cupping with the entire cohort. So we did a virtual cupping where Mike and I sampled the coffees live with different roast profiles and provided the cohort our feedback on what we were experiencing. They voted on it. And then some other things, they voted on the actual packaging, the label here they helped create. And then I'll zoom in one more time.
I got you.
Each member of the cohort is actually, their name is on the bag. So that was a pretty cool thing. So ultimately, the end product was a bag of coffee that these people can actually really kind of call their own. So it was, limited edition type coffee. We roasted it up, and last week we shipped off the first 100 or so units. They've received them. This weekend we're going to do a little group call and do a little social thing where we all just drink the coffee and laugh and joke a little bit, socialize, make it less formal. But anyway, the point of telling all that, that's what we're calling crowd crafted coffee. Basically, a group of individuals that either want to do it socially, do it organizationally, they're coffee lovers, maybe they just drink coffee once a day, whatever the case is, they get together and we guide them through crafting a coffee that they can call their own. It's something that we think is very unique in the coffee space. And we're proud to say that it's officially live, and people, organizations, groups can reach out to us and can start doing their own crowd-crafted coffee.
That's really, really, really neat. And you've got a really good thing you've got going on. I think it's a really, really unique. Google says it's pretty unique anyway, with crowd crafted coffee. That's what I was looking at. It's so cool that you can utilize a lot of the stuff that we've just kind of been thrown into in the last few months to do something like this with like a virtual cupping when you're developing a coffee. And, we were discussing James Hoffman a few days ago about his world's largest cupping 2, or the return of the world's largest coffee cupping. And it's kind of along the same lines, but not. That's a end product. That's all, roast profiles that are set in stone. This is developing a coffee, which most people never get to do unless they're a roaster. When you narrowed down the samples of what you were going to send out, how did you go about that process? You don't have to give away too many details, but I'm sure the roasters out there that are listening can already figure out kind of how to do it. But I want to know how you did it.
The other roasters out there, they know what it's like to tweak a coffee, and when you receive a new lot, you want to see what the coffee can do, right? There's a certain point where you get to roasting a coffee, and you're imparting maybe a little bit too much of your roaster, your equipment, your style into the coffee, and that's fine. Some people prefer that, but there's a process that we use to see what the coffee will do. And so one of the samples that you have there with you, it's roasted so lightly that when you brew it, I don't even know that you could really directly associate it with a coffee experience. When we cupped that roast profile, we literally said that it tasted like peach tea, like it little coffee experience to it, but it was delicious. So but basically, we wanted to give the cohort a huge spectrum of what the coffee was capable of.
Let's see if I can get that on.
There you go.
So that's almost a white coffee.
Yeah.
It's a little bit darker than white coffee, but it's definitely.
Yeah, it's barely past first crack. But what we wanted to do is you don't want to overwhelm the cohort with too many options, because then it kind of muddles the voting process. But we wanted to be able to give them a spectrum of what this individual coffee was capable of doing. So we went super light, we went somewhere middle of the road, and then we went closer to what would traditionally be called a dark coffee. But at that point, you're starting to lose what the coffee is doing rather than what your roaster is doing. But that's kind of how we did it. We just wanted to give them a spectrum. And then, to be honest with you, the vote was split between the darkest profile that we provided and the medium profile. And we're like, well, that's easy. We'll do a roast profile that's somewhere in the middle. And guess what? It ended up being a pretty good coffee. Everybody's loving it. And they're happy and proud of the coffee that they created.
So I'm just guessing from the members of your cohort and your symbolism that's on the bag that a lot of those members of your team, when crafting this coffee, were members of your coffee club when you were on the ship, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Majority?
We were all there together, and most of those names are part of that coffee buyers club we started the show talking about, where people were getting together and making coffee on the ship with, AeroPresses and French presses and trying out new coffees. And that logo you see on the back too, or you'll see later when you look it up, is that was voted on too. So the group, got the chance to help design the packaging and make it really unique. And the main design on the back of the bag is actually one that we had on the ship together. One of the cohort members, she actually made that design when we were all out to sea together. And so that made it onto the bag, of course. And when we did that vote, the group was also really interested in this bowl design because we were stationed in Spain. And the bowl is sort of an homage to that home port and that part of our background. So we found a way to slip that into the design too. It's a sticker that's holding down the back of the bag. So there's a little bit of both of those.
So the interesting, the commercial side of this, that aspect is that you could get together a company or a group of friends or, whatever collective that you had and say, hey, we're going to craft our own coffee through Project Buna. It's an option, or could be an option, right? One day.
Oh yeah, 100%. So we've done the numbers. We've crunched what the product to the public could look like, and there's a couple different ways that we are going to present it to people. One being, if it's a group of individuals, we'll advertise probably once or twice a year where we're going to do one that's just a Project Buna crowd crafted coffee, where it's just any of our normal customers can just sign up and go through it. Or you could have like another social group of people get together, and it's a bunch of individuals that are loosely connected. And those people would, want to buy 1, 2, 3, a number of units of bags for their own personal use. So we have a model where they can elect to go with that. And we've worked out how big the cohort would need to be for us to be able to go forward with a project. And then we have another model where, say it's an organization, say it's like, I don't know, some big corporation that needs to do a team building thing. And they have like break rooms at their corporate building or in their warehouses or whatever. We can offer a package where we will do the whole crafting experience, and then they would get 5-pound bags to be able to stock their break rooms or have for corporate events. Maybe they're having some business partners come in and they want to serve them coffee. They could have that coffee ready to go for their company.
We had some early ideas around, offering basically a platform for people in the food business, and whether it's like fine dining or even just, your own small operation. But if you wanted to offer coffee and you wanted something to be truly yours, we had thought a lot about how to create a platform that was scalable to allow people to sort of have that influence instead of just being, going out on the street and buying bulk coffee for your coffee shop or for your restaurant. A platform where you could have some creative control, be part of that design process, and then put it up on the wall with your logo or with your design and really be able to call it your own. But that idea really just expanded. I think it's core to our nature and to yours too, Chris, being, military folks. The tribal effect is really strong. We move every couple of years, but when we're at a unit, for us, it's a wardroom. For pilots, it's a squadron. Your squad, your platoon, we're very used to these tribal effects and bonding together as groups and doing things as groups, and then having things to represent our group specifically. And so if you're familiar with command challenge coins, it's a very common thing in the military and other related circles where, you design and have a physical coin that you can carry around. And Donnie's line is that, in a sense, this is a consumable challenge coin because it's something you can actually consume and enjoy, but it was designed by your group and it's for your group.
That's really cool. I think we lost Donnie. He's having some thunderstorm issues. We're going to bring him back into the stream right now. We're going
to
look at that. On our first show, I'm the one who dropped out. Now this time around, it's Donnie.
You've got some storms going through Virginia right now, huh?
Yeah.
Is that the remnants of the hurricane have finally moved all the way over there, or is it a separate system?
A little bit of both. The system went through, and once this swampy area, once a storm goes through, it just kind of hovers here, the residual 4 weeks afterward. So
we had to cancel the show last week because I didn't have power. We were down because Louisiana got hit, and that's where we get all of our electricity from, apparently, in this part of Texas. So we had to. That was our first show that we've ever canceled because we didn't have power. So we hope both of y'all stay on with us for the rest of the show. So Donnie, while you were gone, he was talking about consumable challenge coins. So talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. So Mike was talking about how we get into this tribal nature. I mean, in the Navy, some of the other services maybe, but one of the things that's near and dear to most sailors at a command's heart is their command ball cap. You get a ball cap that has the crest of the ship. In this case, the Donald Cook has very unique logo, Donald Cook with the trident going through it. But these are near and dear to everyone's heart, and it develops a certain esprit de corps. You take a little bit of pride in your unit. And then the next thing that we kind of likened it to was the challenge coin. Every CO I've ever known has a coin that they can present to the service member for doing something good. Maybe they'll have unique ones for the chief's mess, or different groups in the ship might create one, but it's kind of a cool little keepsake to have. And we just kind of likened this coffee process to having a little bit of esprit de corps, building some camaraderie with a group of people. And we're really thinking that this could be a big hit with different military units, because let's be honest, the military works long hours and honestly consumes a lot of caffeine via coffee or energy drinks. And we feel that, not to really hit our supply brethren in the gut too much, but the coffee that they provide in the supply system is about as commodity coffee as you can get. And the best you're going to probably get out of a pot of that coffee is probably less than burnt. That's probably the best way to go. And so if we can provide something for military units where they can have a coffee that they designed and have some camaraderie with it, and also have good coffee to drink in the morning, I think that would be a really big hit. And we're looking forward to working with some different units.
You got Mocos? Okay, hang on just a second.
And not to belabor the point.
Hold on.
Okay.
You're good. Let me drop my camera off here. I got a baby standing right here.
Quick operational pause.
My dog was, while he's taking care of that, my dog was trying to crawl up in my lap a minute ago. So I had to do a stiff arm over here to keep him down. But
mine's been hitting the squeaky toy in the other room.
All right, I'm back. I think we're good.
No worries, man.
Mom's downstairs on her computer working, and they just got done eating, and somebody had some mocos, so I had to clean a nose. But that's what I got, a soft T-shirt here for that. So it worked. Where I'm sorry, I totally lost track of where we were at in the story.
Well, I can share that to Donnie's point about, Maxwell House on the ship that's either burnt or weak.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Part of what we think is really powerful about the concept is that it shares this journey of discovery into the world of coffee. And that's sort of where we were at, a couple years ago, where the coffee that we're drinking most of the time, you're layering it with cream and sugar. And even then it's bitter, or you're just doing it to stay awake because it's midnight and you're on watch. And to gradually discover this whole other world out there of specialty coffee, of quality coffee that you want to drink black, that you have tasting notes, that it actually matters that you brew it quickly after you grind it or after it's roasted. That was this journey of discovery for us over the course of a couple of years. And so Crowdcrafted kind of exports that to people where they get to dig in and kind of see both from a logistics side, and it's a global industry, right? So how coffee moves around the world and where it's grown, and to all the other considerations that go into creating a coffee product. And that's why, Donnie said that it's a balance. There's obviously, we could nerd out and talk about it for a long time. So you don't want to dump too much on people. It's a bit of a balance of giving them enough to make, smart decisions and to feel like they learned something and got involved. But also kind of make that experience seamless for them.
Back in many moons ago, over almost 20 years now, when I first joined the Army, I was actually a food service specialist for about 3 years before I switched over to being infantry, and we actually would make, depending on what we got in the field rats, sometimes it was bottles of concentrated coffee that was just thick like chocolate syrup, and you would just dump that into a 5-gallon thing of boiling water, then boil it and then put it in a jug and send it out. No wonder why people hated us so much.
Only the best for the
only the best coffee served. But going into that, you get into some of these coffees now. I used to be the guy who walked in the grocery store and looked in the bin and picked the blackest, darkest, oiliest looking bean that I could get. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be good coffee. And I can barely do a dark roast now, just because my taste buds have shifted. What I look for, I'm trying to get a beautiful red hue out of a pour over or out of a Chemex. Or I had a Burundi this morning that was almost like a golden brown, and when you poured it through the light, it was just perfect. But it's amazing how, as you educate people on what good coffee is, how that changes their taste buds or their taste in coffee typically. Do you see a lot of your friends that you engage with that buy your coffee because they're your friends? Do they start off on the dark spectrum and then kind of work their way lighter? Is that what you see?
Without question, the average coffee consumer is convinced that they will only like the darkest of dark roasts. And one of the catchphrases that we use is the best coffee is the coffee you like the way you like it. And that's something I stole from another group. But learning how to walk the line of not letting someone know that maybe what they're drinking isn't the best, and then introducing them gently into something that's different. And I think we may have touched on this before, but we've done these pop-up events where we serve coffee at random different locations that you might not expect coffee to be at. And we would offer up very contrasting coffees. And it's kind of shocking to see the reaction that people will get when they have a lighter roasted, say, a natural Ethiopian, That's an experience that maybe a lot of coffee drinkers have never had, and they're like, whoa, what is this? I like this, da 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 da. And that starts them on the journey of trying new coffee products, and that's really cool to see.
Yeah, the first time I had I would buy Ethiopian Yirgacheffe at the grocery store, thinking that I was like, I'll try that. People keep on talking about that. That's good coffee, and I'd get it. And I was like, this tastes like grapefruit, and it's flat. I don't really like it. Well, once I had a fresh one, and I realized it was actually supposed to have those fruity notes, then my whole outlook on it changed. I was like, oh, let's see what else I can get. And a few weeks ago, I had one that you could once it cooled off to a really palatable temperature, there were apple pie notes. Like if you close your eyes, you would think you were drinking apple pie just because it was sweet and it had a little apple and just a little of that toasty, crusty goodness. And it was just amazing that you can get that out of a little bitty seed.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've paid attention to our normal packaging, but we put our tasting notes on there, and we try and make it very individual. So Mike will go with if we have a new project, he'll take the coffee home with him and he'll experiment with it. I'll do the same, and then we will share what we got out of the coffee. And sometimes my tasting notes might be a little bit eclectic. I think one of them was, to me, the coffee tasted like Sunday brunch. And that's exactly what I got out of the coffee. And so I'm not afraid to be super, weird and let people know that you don't need to be pretentious, or you don't need to be whatever you're experiencing is what you're experiencing. So go with it.
I was talking to Tim a few weeks ago, and they did, he was in the SCA, the online event that they had a couple of months ago instead of having the big coffee event. And they did a sensory project to where they all had the same coffees, and then they all had different materials that they had with the coffee, and they also played different music. And there were some things he was talking about that they were touching Velcro. I think it was Velcro, and trying to drink the coffee at the same time. And just the sensory aspect of that, he said, made the coffee absolutely horrible. Oh, it's sandpaper. He's like, he couldn't drink it. And that's just amazing that your senses can do that. And it's, I relate it back to sensory overload when you're trying to get somewhere, right? So you're in the car, you're looking for that location, and you're looking for it really hard. And what do? Turn down the radio.
You turn off the radio.
Turn off the radio. Like, does it matter? Is it actually making you not see what you're looking for? No, it's about your senses. And when one of them's, overloaded, those other things that, you need to go, or we can get into that whole aspect when you talk about tunnel vision in the military and combat stress, but all those senses come into play. And what I might be tasting as, Fritos when I drink a cup of coffee, like a salty, a bitter with like a slight sweetness to it, somebody else might interpret as, salted caramel. But at least what do we've got in common in that?
Yeah, and one thing to always keep in mind for people that are new to coffee, well, and not even just to coffee, but to anything in the food and beverage category, is your experience can vary based off of what you ate earlier, or if you brushed your teeth an hour ago versus 2 hours ago, or it's hot outside and whatever, or the humidity is doing this, so your brew went different, and all these little things. And so you're never wrong. It's just a matter of figuring out, like you just alluded to, when you're with a group of people, maybe you find out what you have in common, and then you can start to describe the differences that you're experiencing a little bit. I guess that's an interesting segue to kind of to close out talking about crowd crafted and explain how the whole experience would go for a group of people that would want to do a cohort. With COVID, the primary way that we'll be doing it is it'll mostly be virtual because we just can't get a group of people together in one space to be able to do a cupping. But we envision the average cohort in a crowd-crafted project to experience the process in 2 phases, most likely. The first phase would be all of the votes that would get to the point of we've selected a lot of coffee. So we'll curate that. We'll present it to the group. We'll talk about continents. We'll talk about the different countries that we have available and different plots that we have available. The group will vote. We'll figure that out, and then we will contract the coffee with our importer. That'll take a little bit, and then we'll do our profiling. And then ideally, we would probably be about 2, maybe 3 weeks later, we would get together with the cohort again to do a cupping. Most likely going to be a virtual cupping, whether we are able to send samples to the group so that they can cup it with us, or whether we would do the cupping live like we did with Project 75 and provide that to everyone. And then they would be able to vote on that. But without COVID, we would like to get everybody together. We will do a formal cupping with the group so that it's a full experience. We'll teach them how to do a proper cupping. And then we'll vote on how we're going to roast the coffee right there. And then, a week to a week and a half later, we'll get on our roast schedule and we will be able to provide the coffee to the group. So we're looking at an entire project with COVID nuances lasting about a month from we want to do a project to you have coffee in hand.
That's awesome. That's a pretty good turnaround.
Like you said, COVID has added things. So Project 75 took a little longer, but I think most of the importers have figured out how to work around that. And a lot of the freight shipping companies don't have the same restrictions as your typical USPS or FedEx. So I think that by and large, a lot of those constraints that we've had to work through, we've learned as an industry and as really just a country how to work around some of those big stumbling blocks. But a normal cohort will last about a month.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your transition. So you transitioned from hobby roasting to Project Buna. Let's talk about your experience toll roasting, I guess, is if that's the proper term. Is that the proper term for what you've been doing? Toll roasting?
Yeah. So when we launched Project Buna, we were operating under a wholesale model, and then we slowly transitioned into a toll roast, and now we're trying to work the slot roast model where we're running the whole show for roasting. But yeah, we're doing a toll roasting model right now.
And for those who aren't familiar, who listen to this later on, that basically means that we're able to pay to use a coffee roasting machine of somebody else's in someone's facility. And that was I would say.
You're caught up.
I'm caught up?
Yeah, you're caught up. You're not lagging anymore.
I'd say that was a game changer for us getting started as a new business, to be able to bootstrap basically this company, right? Self-fund and not take on any debt or outside investors, to be able to work with partners who were willing to kind of mentor us and then allow us to operate on that kind of a model, which is fairly common in the industry. But just for somebody who hadn't heard of it before, I thought it'd be worth explaining a little bit, because those machines, right, those can be 5 digits at least. So that's a pretty significant startup expense.
So when you're getting into that, so I got a bunch of hobby roasters that watch now, apparently, I found out. But what was your method, and what was your biggest lesson that you learned as you transitioned from hobby roasting to roasting on somebody else's machine? How did you go about that?
Well, like Mike alluded to, we feel very fortunate because the roasting facility that we happened to partner with, they had a lot of capacity to be able to work with us. Probably the biggest learning portion of it was understanding how to plan for forecasting your green. It's not as simple as saying, well, we want to contract 3 bags of this green, and then thinking that you're going to be able to get so much out of that green product. As you do your profiling and figure out what the coffee is going to taste best as, then you have to learn the nuances of that machine and that profile. How much water weight did you lose in that green? And we've worked with a couple different roasters, and to be honest, it's different from roaster to roaster. And so as a small business starting off and trying to scale up, forecasting out that green coffee can be a little bit of a trick if you miss your mark, if you're trying to have a X, Y, or Z profit, or you need to cover this in your margins to be able to pay for electricity or this packaging or whatever. You got to really learn your equipment and understand how that's going to affect forecasting. That was probably the biggest shock for us.
Did y'all use Artisan or Cropster or anything like that?
Cropster.
Oh, lost him again.
This storm is wreaking havoc over here.
Yeah. When we talk about Cropster, tell, for somebody who might not know what Cropster is, tell our listeners what Cropster is.
I just say in layman's terms, it's software to help you roast, right? It can save profiles and a ton of data that can be really useful. And you can program it based on that data, and it interfaces with your roaster, depending on the type of roaster you have. So it feels very 21st century, very digital, as a way to control your roast and ensure kind of quality from roast to roast. On the topic, a brief plug for another interesting software tool that we've been experimenting with is this app called Tastify, and I think you'd get a kick out of it, Chris. Okay. It's from a group called Sustainable Harvest, and it's meant to be your companion during a cupping, and it's actually got a pretty intuitive interface for the user, and you can annotate all sorts of different things about the coffee as you cup it and taste it. So we've been playing around with that app, and shout out to Sustainable Harvest for Tastify.
Okay, definitely. I got it pulled up here. I'll go check it out later. I'm going to put that app link in the comments for anybody else watching. I'll have to get on there and check that out. It's always the grandiose ideas of a Roasters Marketplace app that you can you can put your cupping notes on, and it uploads it, and then I can approve it to the website is something that's out there, but that's a $50,000 app to get developed. So we'll be
that, and you just got to sprinkle a little machine learning on there. You got to sprinkle a little AI.
For real.
That is 100% a joke.
So on that note, the Tastify thing, going back to crowdcrafted and experiencing and all of that, for anybody that goes to check out Project 75 on our webpage, keep in mind this weekend we're meeting with the whole cohort, and we're going to actually try and add all of their tasting notes to that product page as well. And if you ever buy one of our coffees, we're always interested to see what other people experience, because you could roast a coffee with an AeroPress, or you could throw it in your drip machine, and you're going to get such a drastic difference, and your grinder matters, yada yada yada. But we're always interested to hear what other people are experiencing with our coffee, because really we just want to make it more accessible and not so stuffy. Just reach out to us, let us know what you're doing.
Definitely. I think that goes along with a lot of people, especially some of the different roasters I've talked to. I always bring the one up I saw on Facebook or Instagram. They had White Claw, was one of the mango White Claw as a tasting note, and seriously, that's what, to kind of demystify specialty coffee and bring it to everybody and share something that's really, really good with people. We need to put down the little white cup and, take off the gloves and talk about it in a rational way that most people, everybody can relate to and enjoy, and kind of just break down that barrier of dark, 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 burnt coffee, for people to illuminate the possibilities, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. And on that note, like, there are companies out there that profess to be specialty coffee. They're not wrong. They are specialty coffee, but we don't need to swing from the cupping session and super hipster nerdy all the way over to where we're bludgeoning everyone in the head with the fact that we are the darkest coffee in the world, and we're going to give you the biggest caffeine rush. We don't have to swing all the way over there. But yeah, you're right. We need to make it so it's fun and accessible to a larger group of people, so that they don't feel like they don't know what they're doing when they're drinking a cup of coffee.
And ultimately, that will benefit everybody in the chain that needs to benefit. The farmers that are growing really, really good beans. If there's a higher demand for that, they're going to get better prices, which will let them sustain their operations even more. So it's really important that we educate the public, as roasters, as a marketplace. That's what we really, really need to focus in on, taking that person that might not know about specialty coffee or might not know about what we're doing or the whole process, and educate them as friendly as possible on what we love.
Yeah, for sure.
So
on that note, I'll throw out a phrase that I have to give a hat tip to Mr. Vigilante of the Vigilante Coffee Company. But it's he just once said, he said, vote with your dollars. It's a way of showing what is important to you. And, we don't have enough time to go into the coffee price crisis and, some of the sustainability challenges and the economics for, these families and these farms and producers. But if we were to talk about it for a long time, there'd be a lot to unpack. But that line of his always just stuck with me. It's like, vote with your dollars. Like, it's one thing to talk about it and say, and it's another thing to really even just do a little part towards it.
So one of the things we brought up last time, and I've talked to you all a little bit about, and we talked a little bit about it last time, was the nature of Project Buna, and the fact that in a few months y'all might have to separate. Tell us about how Project Buna is going to move forward in the future. If y'all do have to, one of y'all goes one way and one of y'all goes the other, tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's kind of a nerve-wracking thing for us to consider a little bit, because we are starting to hit our stride and learn a lot about how we fit into the coffee world. Given the fact that we do operate under a toll roasting, slot roasting model, that does provide us a little bit of more of a nimble stance, and we can move a little bit. And fortunately, I'm going to be the one that's going to be departing the pattern the soonest. I'm going to be moving down to southeast Virginia, to the greater Norfolk area. But we're going to be operating under a model that we're describing as a project manager model, basically. During the times when I'm on the ship and I have to deploy, or I'm out to sea and I literally can't be available to help run the day-to-day operations of Project Buna, Mike will have to, run most of the nuts and bolts of what we do. But that's not to say that it's going to necessarily fall all on him. Crowd-crafted coffee is going to be one thing that we really lean on, especially when I am deployed, or if Mike gets sent back to another ship, or if he moves on to another station in life. Crowdcrafted is going to be able to be something that we can operate and manage individually in a project manager standpoint. So, for example, the next crowdcrafted coffee that you will see us progress through is one that's going to be dubbed Project 14. I'll let Mike talk about that, and it's going to be a project he's going to be managing. Another one that I'm currently working on is I'm trying to partner with a whiskey distillery to do a barrel-aged coffee that's not just a barrel-aged coffee, but the collective group gets to work through how we actually age coffee in a used barrel so that we're still getting nuances of that. So that's a project I'm going to do for Crowdcrafted. So basically moving forward, we will start to operate under a project management model, and we'll each be responsible for managing products and moving the company forward that way until it's time for me to retire and I can call this my full-time job.
You know, Donny has some great ideas for a future space and for a whole future endeavor of which this could be a powerful piece. And I really love his vision for that. So I hope that becomes a reality sooner rather than later. But I'd say that overall, Chris, to your question, it's been a unique part of our entrepreneurial journey so far as it is, because we always had that date in mind, right? We always knew when we were going to either rotate or transition out, and we would imagine the different worlds we'd be in and what kind of decisions we would make at that point. I think that we have some confidence in our ability to work remotely and to work in a distributed fashion, especially, you know, with this project-based type of model that Donny's been talking about. And you know, in business, they always say, like, don't do custom, right? Custom doesn't scale. Don't get into custom. The margins aren't good. But I think part of what, you know, may make us be able to break out a little bit in the space is that we have ways to make it repeatable, ways to make it streamlined and operating at scale. And Project 14 is I am a Navy like Naval Academy guy. I'm an Annapolis guy. And so we have a lot of pride in our class numbers. So that was the class of 2014. And I've just shared this with a few so far, but we'll be reaching out to a lot more of them here shortly. And we reserved the number 14 to do a crowdcrafted coffee with all my classmates from school. So if you're listening and you think this would be cool and you have a number that you want to reserve, you should talk to us quick, because we're reserving numbers. If you're not familiar with our coffee yet, our main product lines are project numbers. We started with Project 1, and Chris, you were talking about that honey process Colombian. That's Project 13. But we had the number 14 reserved out because we knew we wanted to do this with my classmates, and we reserved out, obviously, the project number 75. But we can also name them fun things. You know, we can name them project, like we did with Project Pink, right?
So yeah, two things on that. I was wondering why you skipped a number when you gave me the last list of products, because it totally threw off what I had going on the scale. And you just made me feel really old that you graduated from Annapolis in 2014. And so I feel you, Donny. I'm right there with you, bud.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Well, that, you know, also, it kind of helps if you know somebody who if you ever both end up getting on a ship somewhere before you retire, you do know a few people who have access to a whole bunch of roasters. So that might come in handy down the road. But guys, you know, we're hitting 59 minutes right now. We started just a little bit late. We had a bunch of viewers the whole time. If anybody's out there that's currently watching, we've got a couple people on that has any questions for Donny or Mike tonight, let us go ahead and put them in the comments. We'll hang out a little bit. What are you drinking on tonight, Donny?
All right. So as everybody knows, maybe if you watched the first time we were on, I'm a whiskey guy. My office upstairs is where I'm usually hanging out. So I've got a huge whiskey collection. This is Ardbeg's latest offering for their normal line. It's called Wee Beastie.
I'm going to pull that up.
It's a 5-year-old expression, a very smoky whiskey, and a wild ride. This is one that you have to take the time to experience this guy.
What about you? You got anything in the glass tonight, Mike?
Yeah, I do. This is an old favorite that my wife got for me once upon a time, and has been a favorite ever since. This is Jefferson's, but specifically it's Jefferson's Ocean, aged at sea. So the whiskey is aged in barrels on ships, which I thought would be a very apropos considering. What about you, Chris?
I'm finishing off a Moscow Mule. I didn't have a lot of time tonight in between. I mean, when I pulled you guys up, I still hadn't eaten yet. And I was like, I've got to go downstairs and finish off my burger before somebody else does. So I want to thank you all guys for coming on tonight. And once again, cheers. Salute.
Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming on. And we're looking for a lot more from Project Buna in the future. Oh, we got, one comment. Project TNT Coffee Roaster says they loves the name.
Oh,
thanks,
you.
TNT.
TNT's only got a few months left on active duty, and he'll be moving back. He's fixing to be one of my neighbors down here. He's moving from Syracuse, New York, down here to the Houston area.
Nice.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome. All right, guys, thanks for coming on. I'm going to drop you off. Don't go anywhere. I'll hit you up in the green room.
Sounds good.
All right, for everybody tuning in tonight, we really appreciate it. Thanks for watching the show. For those of you all listening later on, please go to your podcasting app, give us a rating, give us a 5-star rating, give us a 1-star rating. Let us know what we're doing bad. Let us know what we're doing good. If you've got any questions or comments, hit me up at chris@roastersmarketplace.com. Leave us a comment here on the video. We really enjoy the feedback that we've been getting over the last few weeks from coffee roasters and cafes and coffee drinkers. And be sure to check out roastersmarketplace.com if you need any coffee. If you're a coffee connoisseur, we've got over 280 roasts, I believe, up right now, including our newest, the Weird Dark Roast. And Weird Dark Roast is our first collaboration with another podcast. Weird Dark Roast is made for the Weird Darkness. It's only available on our website. It's roasted by Tim over at Evansville Coffee. Awesome coffee, awesome podcast, fantastic guys over there at the Weird Darkness. But once again, we're going to roll out to some Dom cores. Thanks for listening.